W7Ark KG7HVR Prescott Valley.
Okay, KG7, is it Alpha, AGR, Alpha Golf Romeo?
Kilo Golf 7 Hotel Victor Romeo.
HBR, okay. Name is Mike. Currently at 11,200 feet climbing.
Very cool, very cool. I heard you earlier, and I just wanted to make a contact with you because I have aeronautical mobiles on 40 meters and 10 meters and 20 meters, but definitely no 2-meter simplex.
Yeah, I've been flying and been hamming from an airplane for, I don't know, 40 years. I've got a regular transceiver in here, the outside antenna, and it's wired through my aircraft headphones, although I use a stock fan mic. I had it wired with the aircraft system for a while, but it was too confusing. I'd be talking ham to the ATC, and I'd be talking and vice versa. Over.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. We have one guy, I think his name is Travis, and he has the radio that will only go on upper sideband, and he would try and call on 40, and nobody would figure out that he was on upper sideband, so actually he started using AM.
Yeah, I've thought about putting a HF ham rig in the airplane. The legalities are fairly steep if you want to do it, quote legally with a certified airplane. If you had a home built, you could do damn near anything you want. But if you're flying something that's got to pass an annual inspection, you're quite constrained about what you can do. And the biggest problem, of course, is trailing wire antenna or a wire that goes from the wingtip back to the rudder, or something that's physically long enough to work well on 40 meters.
Yeah, he's flying like commercial planes, big things. So he's stuck with whatever they have on that particular plane. He just flies all over the place and goes from one place to another.
Yeah, well, military aircraft, of course, have HF, and then some transoceanic commercial airliners do. The ones that would fly to Australia or across to Europe, they have HF. But most commercial airliners that fly totally within, say, North America, Canada, U.S., and Mexico are not required to have HF aboard, and likely wouldn't have it. I've got some experience with Utah Air National Guard aircraft. They're DC-135 tankers. They're basically an old Boeing 707, and they have a pretty reasonable Collins HF capability. And the antenna is a great big spike that faces forward from near the top of the rudder. So it's kind of like a mobile whip, but except it's horizontally mounted. It faces forward on the airplane. And so there's some kind of a tuner in the rudder that matches it on HF.
Yeah, I just always wondered why they would restrict the commercial type of radio to AM and upper sideband only. It seems kind of strange.
Well, yeah, I mean, they use a sideband on the transoceanic flights. If an airliner is halfway across the Atlantic, it's well out of VHF coverage going either direction, and the only way they can get weather updates and alter flight plans and any administrative stuff relating to the flight is on HF. And so there are FAA and EU operated HF aircraft stations, and so I'm sure they just agreed on what kind of standards they were going to support. And the choice of sidebands was one of them.
Yeah, I guess that would totally make sense. I mean, really, because then you'd have to be, you're on upper sideband or you're on lower sideband. So they just established it as it's going to be upper sideband no matter what.
And it's, because frequency and lower sideband on a different frequency, just like ham rigs naturally would have been before, like back in the day when sideband started over.
Yeah, well, Travis said that the cargo planes that he's flying, they have a radio that's kind of channelized, and you can't select anything except for AM or upper sideband on any of the bands. And I guess it basically covers almost all the bands all the way up to like 50 megahertz or something.
Yeah, the radio is probably just synthesized and has wide coverage, but the frequencies that they would normally use for aviation are very constrained, very narrow preset frequencies. For example, I've listened to them from my house, and I vaguely recall there's a Shannon, which is Ireland, which is one of the terrestrial ground stations that services the high flyers. I've heard them on, I think, 6.2 something megahertz.
Well, that's a pretty good haul. I usually listen to the 132, 325. I just pick it up here and listen to it, and been trying out some of these little cheap handhelds that have aviation band on them, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Now, a lot of them won't transmit. They receive only. And of course, the VHF aircraft stuff is AM. So, most of these transceivers are designed for FM, and they have to jump through some hoops to make an AM detector in a AM 12 circuit. So, anyway. Okay, so I live north of Prescott and near Paulden, and I'm heading up to Salt Lake City today. I've got some family business up there, and I have a daughter that lives there and grandkids. That's where I used to live before I moved to Arizona. So we make that trip fairly often. It's about a 3-hour flight door to door. And if I were to drive it from our house to my daughter's house in Salt Lake, it would be a 12 to 13-hour drive. Over.
Yeah, QSL. That's like driving to the Grand Canyon from here. Boy, have you gotten to fly out in that area, and just get a really good view? Or are they kind of like really strict about where you can fly near the canyon?
Well, over the main part of the canyon, the part where the visitors go, like the South Rim and the North Rim visitor centers, one of the corridors, in fact, the one I'm going to fly through today, is called the Dragon Corridor, and it's like there's a waypoint on the south side, and there's a waypoint on the north side. It's about 20 miles across, and the corridor is about 10 miles wide, so you kind of have to aim for that first waypoint, and then you got to turn a little corner to go to the second waypoint, and then get back on course to Utah. And the minimum crossing altitude going north is 10,500 feet. So that's the minimum altitude. You can cross higher. If you go to the furthest west down towards the Las Vegas end of the canyon, then the minimum crossing altitude dropped down to about 7,000. You can get a pretty good look from that altitude. But up here, up on the east end of the canyon, you got to cross pretty high. They keep us about 1,000 feet above the tour aircraft. All of the sightseeing airplanes and helicopters and crap that flies out over the canyon from Grand Canyon Airport. Well, what they do is they kind of keep us separated as GA, general aviation. They keep us separated from the tour operators by about 1,000 feet. Over.
Yeah, QSL. Yep. We went out there, I think last week, and took a bunch of pictures at nighttime, and got some really good photos of the Milky Way and stuff like that. I love going out there. I also like going out there and setting up my radio in the parking lot over there. And I got on there one time, and I had some 40-meter ham sticks, and I got on all the different nets on 40 meters, and these guys were sending me QSL cards like 2 years later.
Well, that's a pretty rare county or grid I've been a ham so long, I'm kind of jaundiced on on getting a card from a rare county or a grid square. It doesn't mean all that much anymore. But I do have an RV, and I do have a 40 HF rig that I operate out of the RV, and I've been in that same position where somebody wants a confirmation over.
Yeah, oh, they went nuts. I mean, it was this like I didn't even think anything of it. I was just, I happened to be traveling at the time, and I was gonna sleep over in the parking lot there. So I said, well, I'll just set up my radio and see if I can get on the Ole Miss net. And they went nuts.
Yeah, my wife's from Canada, and we have a summer house in Alberta, and so I put together kind of a hand-me-down ham station that I leave up there in the summer house, and I was up there for field day this year. Man, I made, you'd think I was some real rare DX entity, but there were a lot of people that were fascinated with talking to Alberta over.
Yep, it's strange when you're on the other end of things. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my wife's dad was from Canada, and then he was on like Air Force Two, so she's got, I guess, dual citizenship. But I don't think I've been up there. I'm from Washington State. I grew up in Skagit County, so I think maybe I went up there when I was really little. But I lived in Bellingham, so I've been around a lot of Canadians in my life.
Yeah, well, we call ourselves reverse snowbirds. All the Albertans used to come to Arizona in the winter, but with the exchange rate, that's getting kind of expensive for them. So I think that traffic slowed down a bit, but we go the other direction. We go up there when it's hot in Arizona. So we were up there twice this year for about a month each time. And we used the airplane to get there, obviously. That would be a 3-day drive if we can make it in one day in the airplane. Over.
Oh man, that's pretty cool. Yep. I don't know about airplanes. They kind of scare me. I've not been in an airplane since the 80s when I was a little kid. We flew out to New York to visit family, and that was about the end of that. And this is, before all the way stuff is now. I don't even think I'd want to get on an airplane. I'd feel like I was being treated like a criminal. But what you're doing is pretty cool because you have your own, so that's a whole other story.
Yeah, actually, the purpose of the trip is I'm going to go see a daughter in Appleton, Wisconsin. This summer, I flew this airplane up to Salt Lake, picked up a friend, and then flew out to Oshkosh, Wisconsin for the EAA fly-in, and happened to visit my daughter. Appleton is only about 18 miles up the road from Oshkosh. By the way, I've made that flight in this or a previous airplane. This is made it maybe a dozen times. It takes a pretty good day from Salt Lake out to Lake, Oshkosh and Lake Winnebago area, part of Wisconsin. Usually, in a dozen trips or so I've made, I've gotten skunked by weather a couple times. I had to put down, spend the night somewhere, but most of the time it's a 1 day out, 1 day back trip. And when you do the flying out there, you camp with your airplane, you put a tent under the wing, and you spend about a week out there, along with about 15,000 other airplanes doing the same thing.
Yeah, QSL, KG7HVR for ID. So, what do you think our range is from Prescott Valley to where you're at? Like, when is my signal going to start fading out? Maybe I just got that answer. Because I don't hear him anymore. I think maybe I might have finally lost you. I think maybe I'm out of my range. Yeah, see, so I kind of like heard the clicking and noises like that, and I was asking him that question, but he may actually be busy with something else also, so you never know. But I think um, that I'm just too far away now, so yeah, pretty cool though.